February 18, 2026, 3:47 p.m., Caribbean Sea, and 80 miles east of Honduras. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Vigilant detects suspicious vessel on radar. Fast-moving, headed north, erratic course, standard profile for drug smuggling. The Vigilant alters course to intercept. Standard procedure, standard day. The crew has done this hundreds of times. Approach, hail, board, inspect. Sometimes find drugs, sometimes find nothing. Usually, suspects surrender, accept capture, let lawyers handle it. This time will be different, because the speedboat won't stop, won't acknowledge radio calls, won't accept capture. Instead, it runs at 60 miles per hour, throwing cocaine bales overboard, creating trail of floating packages, destroying evidence, fleeing desperately. And what starts as routine interdiction will become 45-minute high-speed chase ending in controlled ramming maneuver at 60 miles per hour. Both vessels damaged. 4 cartel members in the water. 2 tons of cocaine seized. And GPS device revealing 15 other drop locations worth hundreds of millions in cartel operations. But none of that is the real story. Because what that GPS reveals isn't just drop points. It's corruption network. It's complicity. It's law enforcement officers and government officials who've been protecting cartel routes for years. And why discovering it accidentally might have prevented cocaine pipeline that supplies entire East Coast. The numbers seem straightforward. 1 Coast Guard cutter, 1 smuggling speedboat, 45-minute chase, 60 miles per hour, 2 tons cocaine. But those numbers hide the complexity, hide the desperation, hide the decision that makes ramming necessary. Because Coast Guard cutters don't ram vessels, don't deliberately collide, don't use their ship as a weapon, except when all other options have failed, when suspects won't stop, when evidence is being destroyed, when letting them escape means losing everything. Intelligence, arrests, drugs, everything. Then ramming becomes option, calculated, controlled, dangerous, but necessary. That's what 45 minutes of chase leads to. That's what desperation on both sides creates. Coast Guard desperate to stop the boat. Cartel desperate to escape. Both willing to risk collision at 60 miles per hour. Both gambling that their vessel survives. Both knowing this ends badly for someone. Question is who? Stay with me. Because what happens during those 45 minutes reveals more than just chase tactics. Reveals why Cartel was so desperate to escape. And why GPS device found afterward exposes network that took years to build and seconds to destroy. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez commanded the Vigilant. 12 years Coast Guard. Hundreds of interdictions. She knew the drill. Knew smuggler tactics. Knew they usually surrendered. This boat wasn't surrendering. Was running flat out. Making 60 miles per hour. Faster than the Vigilant's maximum speed of 38 knots. Coast Guard cutter couldn't catch speedboat in straight race. Needed tactics. Needed strategy. Needed the smugglers to make mistake. Or needed to force them into one. Martinez studied the situation. Speedboat heading north. Toward international shipping lanes. Toward commercial traffic. If speedboat reached heavy traffic, they'd disappear. Blend with other vessels. Change course, escape. Martinez had maybe 20 minutes before that happened. 20 minutes to stop them. 20 minutes to force surrender. Or accept failure. Accept that tons of cocaine would reach American coast. Accept that Cartel won this round. Martinez refused that outcome. At 3:52 p.m., 5 minutes into chase, speedboat began throwing packages overboard. bales, wrapped in plastic, floating, creating trail. Martinez understood immediately. They were destroying evidence, dumping cargo, making the interdiction worthless, even if caught. No drugs meant no prosecution, meant suspects go free, meant nothing accomplished. Martinez radioed for helicopter support. Air station Vigilant. We need helicopter on scene. Suspects are dumping cargo. We need aerial coverage to mark locations. Launch available asset now. Response was immediate. Vigilant, helicopter is launching. ETA 25 minutes. 25 minutes. Martinez needed to keep Speedboat in sight for 25 minutes. Needed to prevent them from dumping everything. Needed to maintain pressure. Make them choose between speed and dumping, between escaping and destroying evidence. That was the leverage. That was the tactic. At 4:03 p.m., 16 minutes into chase, Speedboat had dumped maybe half their cargo. 8 to 10 bales. Maybe a ton. But they still had more. Still had cargo weighing them down, slowing them slightly. Martinez saw opportunity. Helm, increase speed to maximum. We're closing distance. Vigilant pushed engines to maximum output, 40 knots. Still slower than Speedboat. But every bale they dumped made them lighter, made them faster, but also gave Coast Guard evidence. Floating bales that helicopter could locate, that cutters could recover, that prosecutors could use. The smugglers faced impossible choice. Keep the drugs and stay heavy. Dump them and lose evidence but gain speed. Martinez was forcing them to choose, and each choice was bad. That's tactics. That's strategy. That's how you catch faster boats with slower ships. You make them make mistakes. At 4:18 p.m., 31 minutes into chase, Speedboat made their mistake. They turned east, toward Puerto Rico. Bad decision. That course led to more Coast Guard presence, more assets, more aircraft, more cutters, less open ocean, less escape room. Martinez didn't understand why they'd chosen that course, but didn't care. Just followed, maintained pursuit. The Speedboat had stopped dumping cargo, had given up destroying evidence, was just running now, just trying to escape. That meant interdiction would be valuable, meant chase was worth it. Martinez pushed forward, maintained pressure, waited for their next mistake, or created opportunity for forcing one. At 4:27 p.m., 40 minutes into chase, helicopter arrived on scene. MH-65 Dolphin. Fast, maneuverable, could keep pace with Speedboat easily, could track from above, could coordinate with Vigilant. Change the tactical picture completely. The helicopter pilot radioed, Vigilant, Dolphin 6. I have visual on the target. Maintaining surveillance. What are your intentions? Martinez responded, Dolphin 6. Suspect will not stop. Has dumped significant cargo. Still has more aboard. Request you maintain visual and be prepared to assist with interdiction. The pilot acknowledged. Copy. I'm tracking. They're making 62 knots. Course 090. Distance from you. 6 miles. 6 miles. Too far for boarding. Too far for anything except watching. Martinez needed them closer. Or stopped. Or willing to surrender. None of those seemed likely. At 4:32 p.m., 45 minutes into chase, Speedboat did something unexpected. They slowed. Not stopped. Just slowed from 60 to 40 miles per hour. Martinez saw it on radar. Wondered why. Mechanical problems? Fuel? Decision to surrender? The helicopter provided answer. Vigilant, they're preparing to fight. I see individuals on boat holding what appear to be weapons. Rifles. You should consider them armed and dangerous. Armed. That changed everything. Changed rules of engagement. Changed tactics. Changed risk. Martinez couldn't board vessel with armed suspects. Couldn't put her crew at risk. Needed to disarm them. Or force surrender. Or ram them. Make their boat inoperable. Make fighting irrelevant. Make capture inevitable. That was the option. The last option. The dangerous option. But maybe the only option. Martinez made decision. Helm. Increase speed. Prepare for ramming maneuver. We're going to disable their vessel. Weapons. Stand ready. If they fire on us, return fire. All hands. Brace for collision. The crew acknowledged. Everyone knew what ramming meant. Damage to both vessels. Risk of injury. Possibility of sinking. But suspects were armed. Were dangerous. Were not surrendering. Ramming was authorized. Was justified. Was necessary. Martinez positioned Vigilant for approach. Aimed for Speedboat's stern quarter. Glancing blow. Enough to disable. Not enough to sink. Controlled collision. Everything depended on execution. On timing. On impact angle. One mistake meant disaster. Meant sinking Speedboat with suspects aboard. Meant fatalities. Meant investigation. Meant career consequences. But doing nothing meant escape. Meant cartel victory. Meant cocaine reaching American streets. Martinez chose ramming. Chose action. Chose stopping them. At 4:34 p.m., Vigilant struck Speedboat's stern quarter at 38 knots. Combined closing speed, nearly 60 miles per hour. Impact was tremendous. Both vessels shuddered. Speedboat's stern buckled. Engine destroyed. Propeller broken. Hull breached. Taking water. The 4 cartel members were thrown from their positions. 2 into the water. 2 clinging to the sinking boat. Vigilant's bow was damaged. Plates buckled. No hull breach. No water ingress. Ship was operational. Could continue. Could recover suspects. Could complete mission. Martinez assessed damage. Damage control, report. The damage control officer responded. Bow damage. Cosmetic. No structural failure. We're operational. Martinez then ordered recovery. Boat crew, recover suspects from water. Medical team stand by. Weapons team, cover the recovery. If they resist, use necessary force. At 4:39 p.m., all 4 suspects were aboard. Vigilant. Secured. Searched. None had weapons. Rifles had been on boat. Had gone down when boats sank. Suspects were detained. Given medical attention. No serious injuries. Just shock. Fear. Realization they were caught. That escape had failed. That 45 minutes of running had ended in collision and capture. They were silent. Refused to talk. Accepted their fate. But the boat told stories they wouldn't. The sinking speedboat was being searched by divers. Recovered packages, bales, cocaine, 2 tons total, including what they dumped. Street value, $120 million, major seizure, but also GPS device, waterproof, electronic, containing waypoints, coordinates, 15 locations, drop sites, delivery point worth more than the cocaine because it revealed network, routes, infrastructure, everything needed to dismantle entire operation. At 6:15 p.m., the GPS device was analyzed aboard Vigilant. Martinez, an intelligence officer, studied the waypoints. Recognized some. Near U.S. coast. Near Puerto Rico. Near Virgin Islands. Standard drop locations. But others were unexpected. Not remote beaches, not isolated coves, but public marinas, commercial ports, locations that should have Coast Guard presence, that should security. That shouldn't be viable for drug drops unless someone was compromised, unless someone was paid, unless someone was protecting the operation. Martinez realized the implications. This wasn't just smuggling operation. This was corruption network. Coast Guard officers, port security, maybe DEA agents, all potentially compromised, all potentially on cartel payroll. The GPS device didn't just show where drugs went. It showed who let them through. The investigation exploded. GPS coordinates cross-referenced with personnel assignments. Which Coast Guard units patrolled which areas, which officers were on duty when drops occurred. Patterns emerged. Same officers, same shifts, same failures to detect. Statistical impossibility unless deliberate, unless coordinated, unless paid. Within weeks, 5 Coast Guard personnel were under investigation. Within months, 3 were arrested, charged with conspiracy, bribery, facilitating drug trafficking. The corruption network collapsed, not because of sophisticated investigation, because of GPS device found on Speedboat after ramming maneuver, because Martinez chose to ram, chose to capture, chose to risk collision rather than accept escape. That decision didn't just seize 2 tons of cocaine. It exposed years of corruption, destroyed cartel pipeline, prevented future smuggling, all from 45-minute chase ending in collision at 60 miles per hour. Lieutenant Martinez received Coast Guard Commendation Medal. Her crew received unit citation. The ramming maneuver was analyzed, studied, incorporated into training. This is how you stop vessels that won't surrender. This is how you prevent escape. This is calculated risk that pays off. The Vigilant's damaged bow became badge of honor, visible proof of decisive action, of successful interdiction, of corruption exposure. Ship returned to service after 2 weeks of repairs. Cost $380,000. Worth every penny, because what that collision exposed was worth infinitely more. The 4 captured cartel members initially refused cooperation, accepted their sentences, expected 20 years, expected to serve time silently, expected cartel would protect their families, pay their legal fees, honor their sacrifice. But GPS device changed that calculation. When investigators showed them the drop locations, showed them that drops were occurring at protected sites, at locations where Coast Guard should have interdicted, should have caught smugglers, but didn't, because officers were paid not to. The cartel members understood they'd been caught because drop sites were exposed, because protective network was revealed, because GPS device that should have been destroyed was recovered. Their loyalty wavered. Their cooperation began. They talked, explained the network, explained who was paid, how much, when, why. Their testimony became foundation for prosecution, for arrests, for dismantling corruption that had protected cartel operations for years. The corruption investigation revealed systematic betrayal. 5 Coast Guard personnel were identified. Petty Officer James Wilson had received $50,000 over 2 years for ensuring his patrol boat was never in certain areas at certain times, for missing scheduled patrols, for equipment failures at convenient moments. Senior Chief Robert Hayes had received $120,000 for altering patrol schedules, for reassigning personnel, for ensuring certain drops occurred during shifts of personnel he controlled. Lieutenant David Keller had received $200,000 for providing intelligence, for sharing patrol routes, for warning cartels when operations were planned. Chief Warrant Officer Sandra Mills had received $80,000 for falsifying maintenance records, for keeping boats in port when they should have been patrolling, for creating coverage gaps, and Commander Michael Torres, senior officer, 30 years of service, respected, trusted, had received $450,000 over 5 years for coordinating everything, for protecting the network, for ensuring drops succeeded, for building corruption infrastructure that made Caribbean route viable for major cartel operations. All 5 were arrested, charged with conspiracy, bribery, drug trafficking, betrayal of trust. Each faced minimum 30 years, maximum life. Torres would get life. Others negotiated, cooperated, reduced sentences to 15 to 25 years, but careers destroyed, families destroyed, legacies destroyed, all because GPS device survived ramming, survived sinking, was recovered by divers, was analyzed by intelligence officers, exposed drop locations that shouldn't have been viable, that revealed corruption by their success, by patterns of successful drops at locations that should have had Coast Guard presence, should have had interception, should have had arrests, but didn't, because officers were paid to look away, to be somewhere else, to fail deliberately. That's what GPS revealed. That's what ramming exposed. That's what 45-minute chase accomplished. The cartel's Caribbean pipeline collapsed. 15 drop locations exposed. Protective network destroyed. 5 officers arrested. Routes abandoned. Operations suspended. Cartels lost their most reliable pipeline for months. Had to find new routes, new methods, new corrupt officials to pay. Process that took time, money, risk, all because one speedboat was rammed. One GPS device was recovered. One investigation followed evidence to its conclusion. That's strategic victory. That's what makes individual interdictions matter. Not just what you seize, but what you expose, what you dismantle, what you prevent. Martinez's ramming decision prevented years of smuggling, prevented millions of dollars in cocaine from reaching American streets, prevented continued corruption, prevented cartel expansion, all from one moment, one decision, one calculated risk at 60 miles per hour. The speedboat that sank in the collision was never recovered, lies on Caribbean seafloor, 200 feet down, resting place for cartel dreams, for failed escape attempt, for evidence that destroyed network. Divers photographed it, documented position, then left it. Monument to what happens when cartels meet decisive Coast Guard action, when smugglers meet commanders willing to ram, when corruption meets exposure. The speedboat's fate serves as warning, as reminder, as lesson. Don't run from Coast Guard. Don't think you're faster. Don't believe corruption will protect you. Don't assume GPS devices will stay secret, because Coast Guard will chase, will ram, will risk collision, will recover evidence, will expose networks, will destroy your operation. That's what Speedboat represents now. Sunken metal on ocean floor. Symbol of failed escape and destroyed corruption. Martinez still commands Vigilant, still patrols Caribbean, still conducts interdictions. But everything changed after February 18th. Other smugglers know the story, know about ramming, know about GPS device, know about corruption exposure. Some avoid Caribbean entirely. Some surrender immediately. Some dump everything before Coast Guard arrives because they know that Lieutenant Martinez will ram, will risk collision, will stop them, will expose them, will destroy them. That's deterrence. That's reputation. That's legacy of one 45-minute chase. One 60-mile-per-hour collision. One decisive moment when commander chose action over caution, violence over hesitation, victory over safety, and won. Completely, decisively, permanently. The 15 drop locations identified by GPS device are now under enhanced surveillance. Coast Guard presence increased. Local law enforcement coordinated. International partners engaged. No drop succeeds anymore at those locations. All attempts interdicted. All smugglers arrested. All cocaine seized. Routes that worked for years now completely denied. Cartels lost 15 access points to American markets. Lost protective network that made those points viable. Lost years of investment in infrastructure and corruption. All from GPS device that revealed too much. That exposed too many secrets. That destroyed too many operations. That's what 45 minutes accomplished. That's what ramming achieved. That's what February 18th, 2026 represents. Not just chase, not just collision, not just seizure, but exposure, destruction, victory, strategic victory that echoes through Caribbean, through cartel operations, through Coast Guard training, through corruption prosecutions, through everything. Because sometimes one decision changes everything. One ramming ends pipeline. One GPS device destroys network. One 45-minute chase becomes legend, becomes training scenario, becomes standard that others measure against, becomes moment that defines career, defines command, defines success. That's Lieutenant Sarah Martinez's February 18th. That's Vigilant's damaged bow. That's Speedboat on seafloor. That's 4 prisoners serving decades. That's 5 corrupt officers serving life. That's 15 denied drop locations. That's Caribbean pipeline destroyed. That's cocaine prevented from reaching streets. That's families protected from addiction. That's communities saved from destruction. That's everything. All from 45 minutes. All from 60 miles per hour. All from one collision. All from one decision. All from one commander who chose to ram, who chose to risk, who chose to win.